Hello everyone, Derek here again with another My Thoughts video game review. Today I wanted to talk about Decay the Mare, which is an adventure game, sort of a point-and-click adventure game on Steam. And I was actually given a copy of this game as a giveaway from Grouvee.com. If you're not familiar with that site, it's a really cool little place where you can go and track your backlog, that sort of thing. And there are a couple of sites that do that. I like Grouvee the best. To me, it seems the most user-friendly, and I really do enjoy what they're doing over there. So, and I really appreciate them. I kind of wanted in a drawing they were doing, so I got a copy of it. So I thought I'd do a review about the game since I did get a copy of it from them. And the game is pretty good. It has a couple of caveats with that I want to talk about, and I actually really did enjoy the game, but I do see some things depending on the kind of gamer that you are or what kind of games you're looking for where this might not be your cup of tea, so that's what we'll get into. So like I mentioned, the game is a point-and-click adventure game, sort of in the style of something like Phantasmagoria, King's Quest, that sort of thing. Except it is like in the style of those games in as much as you are collecting items that you'll use to solve puzzles throughout the game. But the presentation actually made me think a little bit more of Myst, because the way that you interact, the world is not fully 3D as far as completely explorable in 3D. It is something where you are generally looking at a relatively still image. There are some animations in there on certain things, but for the most part it's a fairly still image, and you're just clicking to move to look at different parts of the room. So something similar to what they do in 999 on the DS, or, like I said, in Myst. But in this game you are going to be collecting items, you're going to be solving clues, you're going to be reading documents to kind of learn more about what's going on in the story. And the story is actually pretty cool. It really feels like a horror movie. It really has that sort of horror movie thing and kind of hits a couple of those tropes. Not the ones like the Cabin in the Woods tropes where there's all those different kinds of things. It doesn't quite go there. It's more like psychological horror, but it feels like a really cool horror movie. Now the game itself, when it starts off, it actually is a little bit, not confusing, but it's the layers of the story don't really come out for a while. There are going to be things that they're talking about in the story, people, characters, and things that you're like, how did these people that we talked about here, what do they have to do with these people that we're talking about now? And it's going to seem a little disjointed at first, but by the time you get to the end, all of those pieces come together and you kind of realize what really is going on. And the ending has kind of a nice twist to it. It really is a lot of fun. So the storyline itself is you are a guy named Sam, and you are going to a rehab. So you're checked into a rehab to get off of drugs or something like that. It's not really specified what exactly he's getting off of. But the problem that you're having is every night when you go to bed, you have these horrible nightmares. And the nightmares are such that you're starting to question whether you're awake or asleep at any given time. It's hard to know the difference between the two because these dreams are so real, and in these dreams there's someone chasing you. And as you're going through the game, you start learning more about what's happening, what's really going on, and what's caused it, and just all these things, all those pieces of this, like why you're having the dreams, what the dreams are about, what they represent, all sort of come together by the end of the game. And what's really interesting about it is because they're doing a lot of this in a dream world, there's a lot of the really interesting and surreal things that they can do that kind of break reality a little bit. I mean, it's not something where they have to adhere to strict realism because you're in a dream world. So they can do some really kind of interesting and creepy things. And there are some fun moments that happen in the game. Some really excellent jump scares too. If you like that sort of thing, there are a couple of them. One in particular that really got me. And then on top of that too, there's just also sort of this eerie atmosphere about the game. And you're sort of going though, and you're solving this puzzle of what's going on in your life and why you're there and what's happening and what these dreams mean. And I have to say, as far as like the gameplay itself, it's all very good. It's very interesting. The puzzles never get too frustrating or confusing or too obtuse. I had a little bit of trouble in the beginning, but I think that was just kind of getting acclimated to the function of the game or the way that it's played. Once I used the hint system. There's an in-game hint system at the beginning for just a couple of the things, but then once I did that, I kind of realized how the game makers kind of approached this, and then once I did that, I didn't really need to use it very much after that. So it was more really just kind of getting acclimated to the world of the game, more so than really needing hints, because I was stuck. At least that's how it felt. That's what I tell myself, so I don't feel too dumb. But as far as criticism goes toward it, I mean, I do think that there are a couple of things that could have been done a little bit differently. One thing that I noticed that was a little frustrating was that sometimes you would solve a puzzle that you had, so you've been presented with this puzzle, and then of course in typical adventure game fashion, you're finding the pieces and the clues to figure out how to solve this puzzle. And then a lot of times you would solve the puzzle and not really have any indication of where to go next. And what would happen is, a lot of times, once you've solved that puzzle, in some other room somewhere, something had changed. Or, if something hadn't changed, something was going to change the next time you walked into that room. Something would fall from the ceiling, or something would be there that wasn't there before, something like that. But there's no indication of what that is. So what ends up happening, and I understand, I mean, they're trying to kind of be subtle about it, but what ends up happening, unfortunately, is that once you finish this clue and you don't really know where to go, then you just wander and you go into every single room that is available to try to see, is something going to happen in here? No. Is something going to happen in here? No. And it kind of kills a little bit of the flow. That is probably my biggest complaint about it, which really isn't that much, because the flow isn't affected that much. It's just something that kind of bothered me a little bit. Other than that, though, I mean, the game doesn't fall into the adventure game trap of, take every item and rub it against every interactive thing in the world. So that's something, it never really felt like it did that. I didn't have any puzzles. Most of the time with that, when there were puzzles, I could figure out with the clues and with the items what went where and why. So so I thought that they handled that really well, and they didn't fall into that trap. One way that they probably did that was because the game itself is fairly short. So they didn't have, I think a lot of times adventure games tend to go too long, and then they fall into that trap as they're trying to figure out what to do next and how to up the ante. That is also something that I guess could be considered a criticism of the game, depending on where you're coming at this from. The game goes for about $10 on Steam right now, and the gameplay is about anywhere between 2 to 3 hours to complete the entire set. So, because it's an episodic game, it was originally released that way, but when you buy it on Steam, you get all 3 episodes, so you get the full story. Now, again, I think that the story is really interesting, and every episode ended in a way that made me want to go forward. In fact, I was actually planning, when I sat down to play it, to just only do 1 episode, and then I was going to do the other 2 episodes different days, but I got myself so wrapped up in the story that I wanted to find out what happened, and so I ended up playing through the whole game in one evening. Which you can do, and some people I know like that. Some people feel like that may not be enough money or may not be enough value for the money that they're charging. And I've seen that criticism somewhere on the Steam forums and things. That's going to be up to you. I mean, that's going to be something where, for some people, a nice evening's entertainment for $10 with something kind of creepy and scary is going to be money well spent. It's really no more than going to a movie, and you spend that, or at least not much more than going to a movie, and it lasts about the same amount of time. So it doesn't seem like it's a really bad value for the money, but I know some people really want games to keep giving, and that may not be for you. There is some replayability in this, in the fact that there are hidden coins throughout the game that you can try to find, so if you're into that. But as far as I could tell, I didn't really see that the coins did anything other than giving you achievements. Now, I didn't get any of the achievements for collecting them, so maybe you did get something more than that when you completed it. There are multiple endings, but there are really only 2 endings, and the 2 endings are based on one decision that you make toward the end of the game. So I actually played through, got the good ending, and then was curious, went back, reloaded a save, and got the bad ending, just to see what the differences were. But really, it's for the most part pretty linear, and pretty much once you played through it once, that's it. Again, though, if we compare it to the cost of a movie and the amount of time that you get from that, it's pretty comparable. So I think for the value, myself, I think it's a pretty good deal. But some people I know have expressed that might be a concern. The game itself, though, like I said, was certainly compelling. It was certainly interesting. I was pulled along. It's not the greatest, most epic story that you've ever seen. It's not the most It's not the kind of story that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. I mean, just to be very frank, it's good, it's serviceable, it's actually a lot of fun, it keeps you engrossed. It's like a horror movie. And, you know, horror movies are kind of that way too. We don't watch them for the plot necessarily. We watch it to kind of get scared, get put in that environment, and sort of have that creepy atmosphere. This game does that beautifully. So if you're a fan of the horror genre, whether it's film or games, I think you're going to have a good time. But just again, go into it knowing what to expect. It's not something, even though the description says that they've been taking inspiration from Resident Evil, which they have in the atmosphere, gameplay is not like that. Gameplay is much more point and click and more like Myst or something. So that is my review of Decay the Mare. I had a really good time with it, and I want to thank Grouvee again for happening to drawing my name out of the hat, as it were, and I'm glad that I got a chance to try it. I'll put a link down in the description to them if you want to check them out. They're a really cool site, so I like it quite a bit. So thank you as always for watching.